Look how good that trunk looks. Nice. Just got finished spraying it with Zolatone Onyx Black Spatter Paint with my Harbor Freight pressure pot gun. Had a bit of a false start in this one. Used the wrong equipment to begin with, but I got the right one at the end. Got her done. She looks great. You interested in seeing how I got this done this weekend? Stay tuned. Welcome back to Restoring Christine. This is Bill. Christine, our 56 Bel Air. She's got a fresh paint job on her. Just spent a whole week over the holidays, spent 5 days spraying her. And she's red and white and beautiful. So I've got her masked off because we're about to take the next step, which is to spray the trunk. So if you are familiar with the Tri-5 Chevys, at this point in time, they used to always paint the interior of the trunk the body color. So the interior of the trunk of Christine would have been ivory. But after that, they came up with Zolatone. They started using, like GM started using Zolatone, which is basically spatter paint. And this, I've got a quart right here. That's what I'm going to use. So Zolatone was very popular in the 60s and the 70s, and as durable as can be. I sprayed this product on a 71 Cutlass convertible that I restored, and I decided instead of trying to get the trunk all spotless, I like that product much better. And plus, Christine's got to kind of has a sinister attitude and a sinister look, and this black onyx spatter is going to look much better and do much better with the appearance of the car. So that's what I'm going to do. So let's get into it. Okay, so Zolatone here, I've got a quart of it. It's a spatter paint, and it's got beadlets in here that just stay suspended in the mixture. And you spray this typically with a pressure pot gun. And what happens is the little beadlets, you don't want to stir it in the pot because otherwise you just have a marble gray. But this is what this color is going to be black onyx. So it's going to have a dark charcoal gray undertone with medium gray flecks throughout. So the flecks and the gray comes from the beadlets that are inside of here. And the beadlets, when you mix this, you're not supposed to shake it. You're supposed to just gently stir it. And Zolatone has some very specific instructions on how to do that. But they recommend that you spray this in 2 coats. So the first coat, which they call a shear coat, you use it with a pressure spray pot. And they recommend you put 10 psi on the pot and then spray it at a high pressure, like 50 psi, spray it at a high pressure with a gun that has a tip of at least 2 millimeters. So at least a 2.0 tip. And then as you're spraying it, when you're spraying that shear coat, the high velocity causes those beads to just hit the surface and just explode. And that gives you more or less a semi-uniform looking coat throughout. Then they have the pattern coat. So then after you coat it the first time, the second time you come back, you dial back the pressure on the gun to about, I think, 25 psi, and you spray it to make the pattern look like you want it to look. So there's 2 different guns that you can use to do that, and I'm going to show you both of those now. So both of these are pressure pot guns. This gun, Central Pneumatic 64-ounce professional air spray gun kit. I bought this to specifically spray the Zolatone on the Cutlass. So in this, you get the pressure pot. It's got 2 hoses. It's got a pressure hose, and then it's got a material hose, and then the gun, which attaches to the 2 hoses. Material goes here, and the air comes here. And you have all the normal adjustments that you have on a gun. You got the how much material and how much side fan you're going to get. So this has a gauge, and you can measure the pressure on it. I don't know what this is recommended to its limit, but this you can definitely put 10 psi pressure on this, and this gun works great. So this is what I used before, but in the process of restoring Christine, we have this gun. So this is a really inexpensive gun at Harbor Freight. This gun retails for $15, whereas the true pressure pot gun, this one retails for about $50. So for $15, this, even though it doesn't say it's a pressure pot gun, I'm going to show you how it really is. I bought this gun specifically to spray polyurethane primer on Christine, and this is something that DIY Auto School Pete, He recommended in that video, and I said, you know what, for 15 bucks, I'll try it, even if I have to throw it in the trash after one use. But it held up pretty good. So there's 3 different settings on this gun. There's, of course, the volume, and then the side for the air fan. But then there's this third one, and this little knob here relieves. There's a little spring valve in here, and I'll have to show you by taking the gun apart how that really pressurizes this pot. It pressurizes it when you're only when you're pulling the trigger. When the air is flowing, it will pressurize this pot. There's a hole way down in the bottom of here, and then when I put the air to it, when I connect the air to it, I can show you how air is actually blowing from right here. So let me do that. All right, so I've got the gun hooked up without the pot on it, and I'm spraying it. Now watch. When the air comes out the front, it comes out the bottom, it comes into the pot. So this regulates the amount of pressure. It's really a regulator. There's a spring with a little tension on it, so if you pull it back, it's going to regulate the pressure inside of the pot. It's not regulating airflow, it's more or less regulating the pressure that gets into the can. But there's no way to measure it. So what I'm going to have to do is, if I want to use this gun, if I want to use this less expensive gun, then what I've got to do is I've got to actually experiment with it a little bit. But that's what I'm going to try to use this, because this has a 2.0 tip, whereas I believe this has a 1.8. And even though this works really well, this I think will work just as well. And so that's what I'm going to try to do. All right, let's open up this can of Zolatone. Show you what it looks like. You can kind of see it's dark. It's got a lot of fluid on the top. But what they tell you to do is, with the stir stick, they tell you to stir around the perimeter first, and very slowly. You kind of see it's like a paste. See how thick that is? But these small little micro beadlets, it's still holding the light gray flecks, and you can see how it's black. But when you spray it with those little gray beadlets mixed in, once those start getting into the mixture, it takes that black and it makes it a light gray. So even though they label this as Onyx Black, it is truly black with gray in it, but it becomes gray, a charcoal gray, once you spray it. So as long, you can see why you wouldn't want to agitate it. You don't want any of that to blend in. So this is very soupy, it's very thick. They sell a catalyst with it, but you don't necessarily need to use it. And as we get started, what I want to do is I want to show you how to prep the trunk, and there's some things to pay attention to that are really important. All right, if you've been following along with my channel, you know that Christine's had a lot of metal work done on her, and one of the things is I had to replace the trunk pan. Trunk pan was rotted out, floor pan was rotted out. I've got a bunch of videos that talk about all that. I'll put some links up here to that, but I also did some interior work on the trunk I had to replace one of the where the wheel well was. One of the brackets that holds the trunk hinge was busted. I had to make a new one. I don't remember. Oh yeah, it's not this one. So that one was disconnected. I had to reconnect it, but this one is actually one I made from scratch. So I have videos on how I did all that in prepping the trunk. But what I did is I gouged out, there's a mastic that goes all around the perimeter. And I gouged all that out, and I put in some seam sealer. I used a 3M seam sealer. I'll put the part number up here for what I used. So in order to prep this was all primed with epoxy. And everything else you see on here is the overspray from spraying the car red and ivory. So what I did is I came in here with 180 grit, just by hand, made sure I knocked down anything that was high. But here is the most critically important part. Do not spray this Zolatone product on any bare metal. It will rust as it's drying, as it cures, and then when you go to it, you're going to look at it, and your beautiful paint job is going to look like it has rust spots all over the place. Ask me how I know that. Because that's what went wrong for me when I was spraying the Cutlass. The Cutlass was, I had to replace its floor pan, and I had to splice it. So because where I welded it at the back, I put in a new tail panel. So there was a lot of body fill in there, and then I sanded it, and I over prepped it. And when I had bare metal, it was just a little bit showing through, and it wasn't that bad. But let me tell you, this product does not like to lay on bare metal. It will not cooperate. It will stick, but rust is gonna bleed through. So you don't want that to happen. You'll know it immediately. You'll know it by the next morning after you spray it. It's within hours. I mean, it really causes it to rust very quickly. So it's very important that any bare metal gets coated with primer. All right, let's set this up and go ahead and start spraying. All right, if I remember right, this material doesn't produce much of an overspray. Got my respirator on. Let's see if I can get in there. I got the pressure really high. I don't know how much pressure I'm gonna need in this, so let's just get feeling it out. Well, I'm going to tell you right now, the $15 gun isn't cutting it. This is not putting enough pressure in a pot to spray this out right. It sprays a lot better than this. You can start to see it starting to run on me. I'm getting a sag over there. It's coming out too heavy. It's not spraying right. So let me set up the other gun and we can get after it some more. All right, I'm back at it. I got my pressure pot set up. So I've got this set up here. It's at 10 psi at the pot. I went in and I wiped out where it was goopy. So I got that cleaned up, and hey, mistakes happen, you know? So I tried it, the other gun just didn't work, so we're gonna have to go with this one. Now we learned something, here we go. Much better. Take a quick look at the first coat. So it didn't cooperate as well as I'd like. Looks a little bit thin right here, but it's going to look good by the time I'm finished with it. Got a little bit of streaks over here we had to wipe. So yeah, anyway, it's the trunk, you know, so it's going to look good. Now I'm going to back the pressure down and go ahead and spray it a second time. All right, I got it done. I got the gun cleaned up. Let's take a quick look at it. Came out really nice. It's very uniform throughout. I think the difference in the color that you're seeing here is just the shadows and the light and the way the camera hits on it, the sunlight hitting on it, but it's very uniform. This will dry to a matte finish. It won't have any kind of a sheen to it whatsoever. It's going to be very dull. So it really helps hide all the flaws and imperfections throughout the trunk. But that's what she looks like. There you have it. Zolatone spatter trunk paint and the Harbor Freight pressure pot gun. That's all it takes to get this done. I went through 2 quarts of material to do it. Took about half a day to prep the trunk and get this sprayed. It doesn't take long to do it. It's totally worth it. Anyway, so I hope you enjoyed the episode, and if you did, please give it a thumbs up. If you're enjoying the channel, I would love a subscription. So until I see you next time, please take care of yourself. Cheers.